Welcome to Forensic Friday.
Where we examine the intersection of true crime, psychology, and the heart of being human in the middle of it all.
So you want to know how terrible of a wife I am really quick?
I always want to know how terrible a wife you are.
I just bought Preston's birthday present, and his birthday was a month ago.
Ah, you guys have had a lot going on.
I know.
What'd you get him?
Well, he told me one of the things he wanted. So he wanted this reel, and I did not want to get him this reel because it's like $300 and it's just like one reel, and he can only use it out of state. He can't even use it in state
What's
because
a
it's
reel?
a fishing reel.
Oh, why can't he use it in the state?
It's for like ocean fishing.
I'm like, my God, that's stricter than our gun laws.
Or like boating. No, it's just that
Okay,
he can use it, but it's for big fish.
it's for big fish. Got it.
Yeah. And I didn't want to get it for him because I was like, I don't want to spend $300 on a reel with that you can't even use for like a year.
Right.
That's dumb.
Yeah.
So I finally like talked to him about it, and he's like, okay. And then he was like, well, I got him these little cameras or this camera thing for hunting
Oh,
for
okay.
for Christmas, and he
Yeah.
wanted two more of those. So I got him those, and he knows about those. But then I bought him like two fishing shirts and a dad diaper bag, and then Carhartt stuff for Grace.
Oh, that's so cute.
I spent way too much money on all that shit, but here we are.
Oh, you're like, wait, listen, we're a month late. I got to make it good.
Yeah.
Listen, I'm worse than you. Garrett turned 40 in November. I did get him a gift then, but we only did his dinner last night.
I know.
It's been a very busy year,
Year.
you know? It's just been a busy year.
All right. Hi, buddy.
Hi, Betty.
How's it going? How is your Sunday?
Great. It's great. I'm weekend sessions. So my 9 a.m. on Sundays, it's
Hmm.
so funny because either she forgets or I forget pretty much every week. And then we just laugh. Like this morning, I texted her to make sure we were still on at like 8:45. I texted her from bed. And then I get a text back from her, yeah, I'll be right on. And then we get on and she's like in her car outside of her house because that's the only place she can get peace. And we
Oh,
both bust a gut. I was like, I was in bed when I texted you. She goes, your text woke me up.
that's so funny.
We had a great session. It's just
I love
hilarious.
that.
A couple of moms making it happen. It's okay. When the weather warms up like this, I'm just so happy. The sun is
Mhm.
out. It's not hot. It's beautiful. Went to a coffee shop with a friend this morning and I was just like reveling in the sunshine. It's
That's
just
so nice.
beautiful.
I love that.
I
Yeah, we woke up and went for a walk, and that
say,
was good. So I'm probably thinking about kids all the time, and my sister-in-law currently, like literally, y'all, the Tumble Buddy,
yeah.
referencing our near-death experience, not Janine and I, but Brittany and I.
Yeah, no, I wasn't a part of that one.
Yeah, my husband and her husband. So the Tumble Buddy, the cousin, is either being born today or tomorrow. So,
It's crazy. Can I tell you my terrible secret?
oh God.
Have I ever told you this?
Is it like a near-death experience during
No.
labor? Okay, yeah.
No, 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 no. I manufactured a crisis that got me to have the baby sooner.
Does Gare know this? He's gonna listen,
Um,
or he's gonna know
no,
now.
I don't know that he knows the extent to which I went to have this happen. Okay.
Note from your friendly neighborhood producer, no, she did not, in fact, in the last 9 years. Tell me about this story.
Well,
So
now you have to tell us.
my mom and I both when we have an automatic blood pressure cuff, there's something about the way that our veins are, it's never accurate, ever.
Okay.
So if you take it manually, it's the numbers are vastly different than if you take it automatically.
Mm-hmm.
It's literally in both of our charts. It's hilarious.
Mm-hmm.
So when I was done being pregnant, I
Mm-hmm.
went one weekend and they were like, no, you're fine, blah, blah, blah. I went in the next week and I'm like, I bet you dollars to donuts. If they take my blood pressure manually, I'm going to have high blood pressure and they're going to want to like get things rolling.
Mm-hmm.
And they did. And then
That's
they checked
hilarious.
manually after they'd already started the induction and my blood pressure was perfect. And it was perfect the whole time.
Oh my gosh, that's
I'm
hilarious.
terrible.
Well, here's the thing. They would have induced me the next day. Like I
Mhm.
went in on Friday, they would have induced me Saturday. But I feel like because there's all these babies on the way that I just think about kids all the time. And you and I work, we don't work a ton with kids, but we work with people who have kids.
Yeah.
And it's a really big deal. And the type of work we do impacts the kids that they have quite tremendously. So that's what we're focusing on today.
Yeah, we
How
do parenting, but this is kind of a different spin, right?
exactly? Well, yes, we do parenting, but we do parenting with adults. It's not like we work with the kids, right?
Right, right, right.
So the thing that we're focusing on today, my friends, is how domestic violence impacts children,
Okay, well, I'm here for that.
the effects of DV on kiddos. And you know, I mean, obviously you're going to know some stuff too, so jump in, please.
Oh, you know I will.
The thing that I'm not doing, but if you have it off, like on hand, you're more than welcome to share if you want to.
Yeah,
I'm not jumping into a crap ton of statistics because here's the thing.
yeah.
Everyone can find statistics.
Oh, yeah.
So this is more discussion based between you and I,
Yeah,
surrounding what we see, what we hear, and then obviously I have facts based on
right,
studies that we're going to share. But I'm
right.
not getting into a bunch of numbers right now. If our listeners want more numbers, we
Yeah,
can do that. But the goal of today is literally just to give you guys a really simple knowledge of how this really shows up in families.
I love that.
Cool.
Sounds good to me.
So, what do you think, Jeannine? What is the most common thing we hear when kids are home during a domestic violence incident?
They were in the other room. They were in the backyard. They
Mhm.
didn't hear anything. They didn't know what was going on. They were watching TV. It's always some explanation for
Yes.
why they were not affected.
Yes. The one I always hear, almost without a doubt, is
Mhm.
they were in their bed sleeping.
Yeah, they were sleeping.
They
Yeah.
were sleeping and they did not wake up.
Hmm.
I hear that almost every single time,
Yep.
like 99% of the time,
Yep.
what they say. Or they say, I mean, gosh, I think that's what I hear most of the time. Or they'll say something like they were, outside at a neighbor's. I don't know. I haven't heard that one in a while. Most of the time, it's literally that they were sleeping.
They were sleeping or they were in another room doing something else.
Yep. Yep. Here's the thing for me.
Hmm.
Even if that's true,
Yeah.
okay? Even if that's true, most of the time, kids can hear things.
Always.
Right? So so here's my thought. They either did hear you and they're not going to say it and they're going to
Right.
pretend that they're asleep or pretend that they didn't hear it if they're in another room,
Yes.
or their nervous system is so used to it that they stayed asleep,
Mm.
which also is really bad.
Yeah, it's not good.
If a kiddo's nervous system is used to that type of chaos, we have bigger issues.
Well, and kids are naturally curious. And so one
Yeah.
of the things that I know is even when I was a kid, I would try to stay up if my parents were having an important discussion
Yes.
or I want to know what's going on. That's how kids are.
Literally. Well, that's what I literally wrote down in my notes. I know I'm a sensitive sleeper,
Yeah.
but I mean, when my parents would just argue, my nervous system would be lit up. And they weren't like, big yellers,
Mm-mm.
right? I mean, my mom could probably get there, but it wasn't like super insane,
No,
right?
no. But kids are really, they're curious. Even if a parent is
Huh.
disciplining one of the other kids, they're going to be like super curious. They're just curious. They
Yes.
want to know what's going on.
Yes. So to think of what some of these kids go through, what they hear and what they've seen,
Mm.
their nervous system is off the charts,
Oh, yeah.
right? Okay, here is a number. Sorry, there's a few numbers, but they're not like humongous statistics.
Oh, yeah. I love a statistic. You make me happy when
I
you start talking
know,
numbers.
but it's a pretty general one, right? It's not very exact, I'm sure, but more than 15 million children live in homes where domestic violence has happened at least once. And I use once loosely.
Yes. And is that violence physical violence or just behavior that would be considered domestic violence, like punching a hole in a wall, that kind of stuff?
That stuff.
Okay.
Yeah, all of the above.
Okay.
But it's like that's what's reported.
Got it.
Okay, so mind you, right? Like there's a ton of stuff that goes unreported all the time.
Oh, yeah.
Also, what you and I both know about children who are born into these types of chaotic situations is their amygdala literally grows to be bigger than the average kiddo who isn't raised in a chaotic home.
Yep.
Right? So, in a baby who is in a abusive situation, abusive home, their amygdala is literally bigger.
Oh, yeah. Even in utero, if they're under a ton of stress, their body starts compensating for that stress.
Yes.
Mhm.
Yes. So, for lack of scientific terms, the
Yeah.
way that I explain it in my groups is I say it leaves less space in a kid's brain for them to develop regulation techniques. So the connection from
Yeah.
their amygdala to their prefrontal cortex
Yeah.
is less quote unquote space to develop healthy coping. So they
Oh,
go
that's a
from
good way
fight,
to put that. Yeah.
so they go from, resting state to fight or flight much quicker.
Because the emotions are much bigger than the
Yep.
logic.
Yes.
Yes.
Exactly. One time when I worked at my old job, a nurse came in and explained that to the substance abuse group that I ran.
Mm.
And she used really good words. And I was like, can you simple that down? And
Yeah.
that's
You can
literally
make
what
it.
she said.
Oh, I love that.
I know. And so it's helpful when I'm like explaining it. I'll talk about the brain. Obviously, the amygdala is more kind of like in the center, like inside.
Yes.
But I say let's pretend it's at the back and and then obviously our prefrontal cortex is at the front.
Right.
And so I tell them like pretend you can see a ruler 0 to 10
Yes.
from the front of my brain to the back of my brain. And we go to the 10 much quicker if I have a bigger amygdala,
Yes.
right?
That's genius.
I know, isn't that
I've
I
never
loved
seen
it.
you teach that, but it's genius.
Really?
I've never heard you teach that, but I love it. I'm
Oh,
stealing it right
that's
now.
wild. Yeah, I used to teach it all the time. I probably taught it when you weren't there or something.
Yeah, that could be.
So, what do you think are the short-term effects of domestic violence in babies to toddlers?
Short-term effects. I would say with a baby, it could go either way. I could see a baby getting more reactive initially and then under reacting
Yep.
eventually.
Yep.
So kind of, if I'm asking to have my needs met and babies don't have words, so they cry.
Mm-hmm.
And if that's met with nurturing, then I start to communicate with my caregivers, whatever that looks like.
Yep.
If I don't, eventually I stop.
Yep.
I start dissociating and doing that kind of stuff.
Yep.
I also think toddlers in particular are little mimics. And so if a toddler sees yelling, hitting, swearing, that kind of stuff, they will absolutely mimic that behavior.
Exactly. So they'll mimic. So they're more irritable,
Yeah. Oh, yes. Uh-huh.
right?
And they don't nap.
They're
They don't nap as well either. They don't
they
rest
don't.
as well.
Oh yeah, no, because their nervous system's on fire.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I see that.
So they're much more irritable. They cry a lot more,
Mm-hmm.
especially toddlers, actually.
Oh, the tantrum thing too. Sometimes they tantrum more.
Yep, yep. And they'll do other things that other kiddos do, but for a little bit longer, like thumb sucking,
Yeah.
and again, the crying and the whining a lot more.
And then depending on potty age, potty training issues.
Oh yeah. Oh
Yeah.
yeah. That's kind of yeah, I put that more with long-term effects, but that could be a short-term effect too.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Um, School-age children. What do you think school-age children, the effects are on them?
Oh gosh. I think you start to see a lot of acting out behavior. You see
Uh-huh.
academic issues, anxiety. I think again, you might see that not just acting out in an attention seeking way, but maybe some aggression
Exactly.
starts to
Yep.
come out. That probably looks different in boys and girls, but
Yes, it does. And we'll
yeah.
talk about that too.
Mm-hmm.
So, extreme feelings of guilt it hurts their self-esteem.
Hmm.
They may not participate in school activities.
Yeah.
Um, it can increase risk of ADD, ADHD.
Mm-hmm.
They struggle with grades. They have aggressive behavior and may get in trouble more often.
Mm-hmm.
And also, and this shows up in all ages, physical pain, right? Like stomach aches, headaches.
Yes.
And then we might start to see symptoms of depression and anxiety even at this age.
Mm.
I
Yeah.
know.
I could
So
see all
sad.
that.
Yep. Teens. What do you think about our teens?
Oh, God bless the teenagers. I love them so much. Teens start doing a couple of things. One of the things I see is they start to really fight back. So they can become protective of one or the other parent. So,
Mhm.
like, let's say dad, just statistically, let's just go with this. This happens both ways. But let's say dad is super disrespectful of mom and aggressive towards mom. What you see in teenagers is really interesting. Sometimes they mimic the abuser
Yep.
because it creates some safety for them. So they also disrespect mom, not always abuse. I haven't heard of many kids physically abusing their moms, but
I have.
yeah, I mean, I think it happens, but they're
Yeah.
more likely to not respect mom, call mom names, whatever, fight with
Yeah.
mom. But
Yeah.
then the other kind of half of kids will start to fight back against the abuser and will become protective of the rest of the family.
Yeah.
And this can be boys or girls. I mean, I've had as many girls as I've had boys in my office with
Hmm.
a plan to protect their family from an abuser.
Yep.
It
Yep.
doesn't really, that's not a gendered reaction.
Mm-mm. No. Yep. No, you're spot on. So poor behavior.
Academic issues.
Oh yeah, oh yeah, they're not even showing up to school half the time,
Mm-mm.
most of the time.
Yeah.
They're fighting. They may engage more in risky behavior, so unprotected sex, alcohol, and drugs.
Yes. Unhealthy romantic relationships.
Yes.
Hmm.
I've worked with teens
Oh, yeah.
who were victims to already abusive dynamics.
Mm,
Low self-esteem, minimal friends,
mm,
might be the bully others, and then also get in trouble with the law.
mm,
The study that I was reading said that some of those behaviors are more likely in boys than girls. And
mhm.
girls tend to withdraw at that age, at the teenager age.
Yes, and achieve. Sometimes they harness
Yeah.
it into eating disorder behavior achievement, that
Yeah.
control. They control what they
Yeah.
can control.
Yep. They can also engage in risky behavior, but men tend to engage a little bit more aggressively in
Yeah.
risky behavior.
I had a girl, this was a couple of years ago in my office, and um she was reading me text messages because clients do that, especially teens. They read all the
Mm.
messages. And she'd gotten in a fight with her boyfriend, and she starts reading them to me, and I was like, this is real bad. And he started talking about checking her and correcting her and all this kind of stuff. And I was like, absolutely not. My face must have done a thing because she goes, oh, I don't think I like that. I can tell you don't like that. And I'm like, no.
Hmm.
So she sat with it, and I tried really hard not to just tell her what to think because what I want to do is say, no, put a line up, whatever. But I
Yeah.
know with teenagers, the minute you do that, there's a part of them that really wants to try it. So
Yeah.
I like sat on my hands while she read
Yeah.
through. And where she landed in about 5 minutes was, oh my God, he's my dad.
Oh.
And I said, what do you mean? And she was able to share more about some religious themes in her home and some abusive things. And that's what, and it was a similar thought process,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Wow.
Uh-huh. So our teenagers are absolutely bouncing off other teenagers in relationships, and they're coming right out of their homes and trying to figure it
Yep.
out, you know?
Yep. Yep.
So
I
yeah.
had a teen who, like not oddly, but kind of oddly enough, her parents didn't have any of these dynamics that I knew of.
Mm-hmm.
Um, at least the ones that were demonstrating with boyfriend was demonstrating, there was no correlation. Uh, but I do remember working with her and she talked about boyfriend's dad.
Mm.
And boyfriend's dad for sure had these dynamics.
Yes.
And so she was trying to navigate it. And finally she broke up with him because she was like, yeah, this isn't good. But he would like tell her what not to wear and she couldn't wear makeup. And would like blow her up. It's just crazy.
Mm-mm.
Teenagers,
Yeah,
teenagers,
no. Mm-mm.
insane. So long-term effects, we know one of the biggest issues we see is the likelihood of them repeating the behavior.
Yes.
So many times in whether it's our group or I see some of our people individually,
Mm-hmm.
they'll say, I never wanted to turn into my dad.
Mm.
And I'm saying dad, y'all, because I primarily work with men. Okay. I
That's
do not work with our women. So I'm sorry if that's offensive.
right.
It's
Not offend you because statistically it is more
just
likely to be
true.
men. Also, we work with both, so it's
Yes.
fine.
Yes. I primarily work with men.
Yeah.
So, but most of the time I hear them say, I never wanted to be like my dad. I never wanted to put my family in the same type of situation I was in.
Mm.
But it still repeats itself, right? Intergenerational trauma and intergenerational patterns. And we've talked a little bit about that before. Um, they either become the abuser themselves, or when I did work with women and you work with our women, they become the victims
Yeah.
slash survivors.
Yes.
Right? So women tend to, if they grow up in an abusive home, they tend to become the victims.
Or they have reactive violence, which I just talked with my women about this a couple weeks ago because we were talking about the typologies. Some of them become so aggressive in
Hmm.
their relationships because they're like, I'm not going to be my mom. No man is going to step to me. I'm not going to need a man. And they end up in codependent relationships with men that they can control.
Hmm. And they end up abusing.
Absolutely. Yep.
Yeah, yeah. Boys who see their mother being abused are 10 times more likely to abuse their female partner when they're adults. A girl who grows up in an abusive home where she saw the father abusing their mother is 6 times more likely to be sexually assaulted
Mm-hmm.
at a younger age, and also that likely to find themselves being abused in relationships. What do you think about that? Pretty, I mean, it's accurate.
It's accurate. It breaks my heart though, because I think if you caught most parents before they get into the fight and you say, hey,
Uh-huh.
this is actually what you're doing to your kid, I think they'd be horrified.
Uh-huh.
Nobody sets out to do this to their kids,
Mm-mm. No,
but
no,
it
most of the
really
time
puts
not.
your kids at a disadvantage.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
It just does. And that's not a shamey thing. There's some things we can do um to turn things around, but it is really if you are in this situation, like you have to stop.
Yes.
Safely stop.
Yes. Yep. And get help and get your family help. And it's
Absolutely.
here's the thing. If you are in that situation and you choose and you have the awareness
Mm-hmm.
to say, you know what, this is us and I need to figure this out, it could get worse before it gets better, but it'll get better.
Well, yeah, and you may need to talk to somebody to leave safely. So, what you don't want to do if you're in a situation like this and you're a survivor is
Hmm.
say, hey, I listened to this podcast today and I think blah, 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 and we need to go to therapy. You got to think a little more, particularly if they're physically violent. You got to
Hmm.
put some thought into how do I even have this conversation in a safe way,
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly.
you know?
There are also correlations to people's physical health
Oh,
with
yeah.
domestic violence and abuse. So studies say kids who witness abuse and who are also and potentially who are also abused are more likely to struggle with their mental health, anxiety, and depression.
Right.
They're at higher risk for diabetes, obesity, heart disease, poor self-esteem, and many other physical issues.
Mm.
Some of the kids that I've worked with in the past who grew up in really chaotic homes would have ulcers,
Oh,
would,
yeah.
obviously, like you said earlier, could develop eating disorders,
Oh, lots of stomach problems, potty problems.
potty problems, yes. And so you guys, it's not just like that they'll grow out of this if it goes unaddressed. Like if they don't grow out of it, it repeats itself, it impacts them both emotionally, mentally, or all emotionally, mentally, and physically,
Yeah.
right? And so it's really important to be aware of these things.
Mm-hmm.
I'm curious for you for what your thoughts are, Janine, on how do we turn this around?
Mm.
How do we
Yeah.
start healing process?
I think a lot of times we see folks come into therapy and they come in for family counseling
Mhm.
or it's wife ordered couples therapy, right? Or
Yeah.
something like that. And we're kind of at a disadvantage when that happens. It's still good to go get help, but we're trying to kind of come at it in a way that appeases an offender. And the
Mhm.
thing that's hard is you've got to establish safety. So you got to stop the bleeding, and
Yeah.
that's not with a band-aid. So sometimes that means I need to find a way to separate safely so that we
Yeah.
can do the work we need to do not under the same roof. So
Yep.
that when we leave counseling, we don't go home together and fight where the kids are hearing it all the time, right?
Yep. Yep.
But the number one thing is people need to be safe. People just need to be safe. And I've worked with a bunch of families over the years who think their kids' lives are better when they're together. And
Mm-hmm.
most of the time those children will be the first ones to tell you it's better if they're not.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I think we have to be real and honest about that, that sometimes the safest thing is not to be in the relationship. Now,
Mhm.
if there's domestic violence and it's not to a degree where people are getting hurt or there's really a fair bit of fear and there's
Mhm.
not child abuse happening, you can go to couples counseling with a DV informed therapist or even somebody who just has some experience with family integration in the
Yeah.
therapy. And if everybody's willing to work on the relationship, you can achieve all kinds of things in
Mhm.
therapy together. You know? What do
Yeah.
you think?
Well, my initial go-to, and it's kind of black and white for me a little bit, is I love what you just said, right? Like getting help.
Hmm.
I think, and this is kind of a blanket statement, but I was thinking about this today. Even when your wife ordered,
Hmm.
there's still a lack of accountability that happens
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
versus when you're court ordered,
Yes.
right? And so I'll be honest, I think individuals who are court ordered to do this type of therapy benefit more
Yes. They have more accountability.
than most humans.
Well, they have more containment. So not only
Yeah.
do we force them to have accountability, but there's containment. There's check-ins about alcohol. There's,
Mhm.
ankle monitors. There's whatever they have involved.
Mhm.
Sometimes it takes that level of containment for somebody to change safely.
Well, and I think part of it is an outside source had to step in and say, this is not safe.
Yeah.
Whereas when it's wife ordered, there's still this dynamic of or mindset of, well, she just thinks I'm the problem
Hmm.
versus an outside source saying, you are the freaking problem,
Oh, 100%. Yep.
right? So even when they're wife ordered, it's hard. I mean, some of the people I've worked or husband ordered, whatever, but I'm going to stick with wife ordered because I work with men.
That's right. That's fine.
So even when I work with men who are quote unquote family ordered, wife ordered, whatever, they come in and they're just big pissed and they stay big pissed longer than my court ordered people.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
And they stay in less accountability for longer,
Oh, I agree.
right? And so
We also need, if you're a couples and family therapist, like, hear me.
oh my gosh.
Y'all need to understand domestic violence because it is frightening to me sometimes some of these people out in the community doing this work and they
Yeah.
they don't have the training and the spidey sense around this. They don't understand the
Hmm.
severity and the scope of the
Hmm.
problem of domestic violence and they get into things they shouldn't get into and then everybody's in the car driving home talking about all these vulnerable, intense, loaded things.
Hmm.
And so I think we need our providers to be a bit more informed. But that's part of why I'm saying if you're in this situation, go to a really seasoned counselor if you
Yeah.
can.
Yep.
Get help, but get help from
Yep.
somebody who can help.
Yep. Yep. And I have so much respect for therapists. This actually just happened, and I won't say too much about it. It's not a client of mine, but I just know of a situation.
Hmm.
And I was informed that a therapist wouldn't see
Hmm.
a couple because of the dynamics that were going on. And not, there wasn't like physical.
Mm-mm.
violence or anything like that. But this therapist who's, who's older, but licensed less than you and I,
Mm-hmm.
and said you both have to do your own work before you can do couples. And I just respect the heck out of that because that's so
Right.
true. You have to do your own work in order to come back together and make it work together. So that's my biggest thing is, to turn this around is, first of all, and I always say this,
Mm.
self-awareness. You have to be aware that of the fact that you have to be aware of your own self and your own behaviors and how you are contributing to the problem.
Absolutely. Number one.
And then you have to look at your family and say, I don't want to be, and I don't want them to be another one of these statistics that I was probably a part of, not me personally, but right. If you are someone who's engaging in abusive behaviors,
Yeah.
you were probably a child in that type of situation, and you are a part of that statistic.
Yes.
So if you want to stop it, you have to be aware of that, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then you have to go to therapy, like you just said, Janine,
Mm-hmm.
to a therapist who specializes in these dynamics and who's going to hold you to the fire,
Oh, yeah.
right? You can't go to a EFT therapist who's going to ask you all, and I am an EFT therapist, but you can't if you're focusing on accountability and getting out of these dynamics, you need to go to someone who specializes in domestic violence
Yeah.
and and anger management and all of that stuff. You can't go to someone who's just going to talk about how you feel.
Mm-mm.
That has to come later, but we need tools at first.
Well, yes, Nat, that's so true. And when you're looking for this therapist,
Hmm.
don't tell your partner if they're power and control. Don't say, we need a therapist, honey, who specializes in domestic violence. My guess is if you're on the receiving end of abuse, you're the one researching the therapist. Just make it happen. They're not even going to look at the website. They've given you this job. You said you're going to therapy. They're like, fine, find one. Find one. That's
Yeah.
what I'm saying.
Yes.
If you've been told, hey, I just need you to find the therapist, find the therapist. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Yep. Exactly. I hear you.
Be about it.
Yeah. And also get your kids into therapy. Help
Oh,
them,
yeah.
start helping them process what they've experienced so they can start to use their own tools to regulate, so they can learn healthy regulation
Yes.
and can talk through their own experiences, right? I know it'll be a blow to your gut, it'll feel like a punch in the face,
Yes.
but this is a part of the accountability process is being able to say I've caused some damage and I need to start to help my family unwind from all of this.
Well, when we know better, we do better. And I think these folks typically lack awareness. They grew up with it, they don't understand the impact of it, whatever. We had a situation where Nat and I, we have so many people coming through our office in groups in the evenings that we had a little bit of an issue in the waiting room because some of our clients weren't terribly self-aware.
Yeah.
They're great. They're great people. We love working with them, but they were cursing up a stream, when they'd come in the waiting room and they're talking about their PO and their this and their piss tests and they're talking about all this stuff in the waiting room and
Mhm.
they are terrifying everyone
Mhm.
around them without any awareness of the
Mhm.
impact of that communication on the people in the waiting room. So we
Mhm.
made them aware and we were kind about it, but we just said, hey guys, like look around, think about what you're talking about. And
Mhm.
if there's a 6-year-old sitting next to you waiting for his play therapy appointment, like maybe like wait in your car or stand
Mhm.
outside or whatever, or sit and just be a calm human in the waiting room.
Yep.
And
Yep.
I will tell you, I'm very proud of our clients because not only did they turn it around, but they started refilling the water tank. And I mean, they just kind of, there's this new level of awareness, I think, of their impact and potential impact on our environment at the center. And I respect the hell out of that, but they would not have known that had they not run into somebody who could at least give them that feedback
Yep.
safely.
Yep.
It would not
Exactly.
have occurred to them. It would have just kept happening.
I know.
Not because they hate the children, but because
No, but
of
it's
passion.
it's just self-awareness, my
It's
friend.
self-awareness.
Yeah.
That's right.
Situational awareness. So this isn't a terribly long episode today, you guys. This is just something that's hopefully helpful for
Hmm.
you guys to hear and to understand. And if you're in this type of situation, there are tools for you, there are resources.
Yes. And Nat
Well,
and I can throw up some resources and maybe even some verbiage that you
Yeah.
could use on the phone with a therapist. Are you familiar with high conflict couples?
Yeah.
Have you dealt with couples who have a power and control dynamic before?
Yeah.
These are
Yeah.
some of the kinds of questions or the verbiage you might look for on the website to get help with this.
Yeah. Exactly. I hope this was helpful for you guys. If you are in this type of situation, we can point out more resources. We'll actually maybe do another mini full of resources or something.
Oh, yeah.
And we can also post, like Jeannine said. And if you're the person who's the aggressor, my invitation to you is to take a breath,
Mm.
um, know that it can get better, and start your healing process as well.
You have the power to change this whole trajectory for yourself, your children, your family.
Yeah.
And there are therapists like Nat and I out there just waiting to work with you and will treat you with dignity and respect and
Yeah.
humor and all the good things, but help you change your life.
Yep, exactly. And it'll start with you. So
It has to start with you. Go first.
go first. That's what I tell my group all the time. They're like, well, what about this? And I'm like, you're in my group.
Nobody cares. What do you do? Do I
Yeah.
look like somebody who wants to hear about that? I'm here to
I'll
tell you
literally
to go
tell them,
first.
guys, you have a front row seat in Natalie's group. That means you go first. Do
Mm-hmm.
not expect other people to go first, especially in this type of dynamic. So you go first and you start making the change and you allow room and space for your family to make change. You don't expect them to change their tune just because you're changing your tune all of a sudden.
Yeah, you certainly don't demand that they change because of your nonsense. Absolutely not. Maybe if you weren't court ordered and you hadn't done the thing that put you in this position, then maybe we could have a different kind of conversation. But here we are.
But still, don't do that. Just
I know.
start changing your tune
Go
and tell
first.
them, "Hey, I'm gonna really try to start to change in hopes that this will better our dynamic and our relationship." And they'll probably want to follow suit.
They're probably waiting.
But just don't expect it right away because they're used to
Yeah.
your hot nonsense already.
Yeah, they really are.
So is your kids. So go first, find some help. Don't let the shame get in the way. That's my biggest encouragement.
Oh, I love that, Nat. Good work.
Yeah.
That's a good one.
Thanks.
Good message.
Yeah. Well, my friends, we have some good stuff coming for you guys over the next couple weeks. So stay tuned. And as always,
Bye, forensic friends. I'm Jeannine.
and I'm Nat.
And as always, thanks for listening and join us next week for more crime, psychology, and heart.